Well, that's not exactly the way that the Reds wanted the series to start off, but at least we got a lot of Fernando Tatis and a whole lot of hitting from the Padres in game one of the series. There's that bobblehead. We are joined by Javi Reyes. Javi Reyes is joined by myself, Jeff Carr, and my co host, Stephen Offenbaker from Locked On Reds. This is the Locked On Reds, Locked On Padres crossover. We are both part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day, and we thank you to all the everydayers who are joining us here today on this crossover edition. Jump in the comments section. Maybe let's have a little bit of battle, see if there's more Reds or Padres listeners coming on today. But as the series gets going here in San Diego, it's a series that Steve and I have both said, just give us one game. Let's just avoid the sweep here because it's going to be pretty tough. I mean, I know the Padres kind of haven't really got going yet this season, Javi, but Steve, when we look at this series for the Reds, the two guys pitching in the first and the last games of the series is really what gave us the pause.
Well, this game went pretty much how we anticipated that it was going to go. The Reds offense gave us a little bit of hope a couple of times along the way, but at the end of the day, the Padres lineup simply outmatched anybody that the Reds really ran out there on the mound. It was fun. It was exciting. I got to tell you, being at Petco, just let me drop this in right now. What a great ballpark to watch a baseball game in.
Oh yeah.
It was rowdy and not in a bad way. The Padres fans were just fired up. They were just loving on Fernando Tatis every time he came out of the dugout. It was a great baseball experience. Never mind the outcome and getting stumped. I had a great time out of Petco.
Yeah, that's one thing that you're talking about rowdy. Javi, Steve has been to like some Steelers Bengals games, so we know
Mm.
what rowdy looks like.
Oh man,
But
Lord.
Fernando Tatis, man, that's a different kind of rowdy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's his first game back in a long time. And I know that there are a lot of folks who will do the, oh, what are you doing? A standing ovation for a cheetah? All that type of nonsense and whatnot. And I've already discussed that on my show. I think that fans need to chill out. Players, I get it. I mean, this is more affecting them, but I just think that it was really cool to have him back for sure. And he basically just got back. He came back a week or so ago for the D-back series, and it was his first game at Petco in a while, and it was really cool just seeing him there, seeing him in the home uniform and all that. And he's been playing okay for the most part, but I think that, and we're going to talk about him a little bit later, some of the plays that he made, but I loved it. I loved having him back. It's really cool. And one of the discussion points on the Padres so far has been, is this going to be like that spark to get the Padres offense going? As kind of alluded to, that they haven't been bad, certainly not bad. Anyone who watched the Chicago White Sox over the weekend can attest to what bad baseball actually looks like. But with the Padres, it's been underperforming. You've had some good moments. You have Xander Bogaerts, who's been awesome so far. Immediate return on investment given the big contract. But then you have the Juan Soto stuff. You have Manny Machado perform poorly. And overall, this team with runners in scoring position has been pretty abysmal. Third lowest batting average in all of baseball. Even worse than the Reds. That's right. The team that lost this game. Even worse if you want to go by WRC plus. They're the fourth worst with runners in scoring position so far. And things have improved lately for them because of that Mexico City series. They had a decent run of things there. And of course, in tonight's game, they managed to do big things with the Ha-Seong Kim home run. Trent Grisham gets a couple doubles. Manny Machado had a nice grounder that got him 2 RBIs in the night. So that was cool. But for the most part, the Padres haven't entered like the sage, mode yet that I think a lot of people thought they were going to be in, where they were just going to be like an unbelievable offense that was just going to have that top of the order just kill you. Haven't quite gotten there yet. Hasn't been miserable, but hopefully this is a series against a team that the Reds aren't. I mean, you guys can talk about this more, but they're not in that, like, they're in the lower tier of teams, but they're not in that, oh my God, we're hopeless and we have nothing. Like, say, a
No,
Colorado, a White Sox, right? Those teams, and Oakland
yeah.
A's, certainly, where it's like they're bad, but you see that, Hunter Green, it's an extension and stuff. You have Ashcraft, you have Lodolo, and you've got players, right? And you've got a cool farm system. So it's one of those series where it's just kind of you're hoping to see some fireworks and whatnot. And I'm really sad that, you guys have Will Myers now. And that makes me just like, I know I miss him a little bit. I miss that guy. He's
Yeah, he was
polite.
supposed to come back, but
Yeah.
he was he was not going to be able to because he's on the injured list. And no, as far as hopeless goes, we just got done playing the A's, so we know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
the
whoa,
captains
my
of the
gosh.
hopeless crew. Sorry to Jason Burke over at Locked On A's, but when it comes to kind of how the Reds match up in this series, that was the biggest thing, is that the hitting, because the Padres have so many guys that can change a game with one swing. The Reds don't really have that many guys. In fact, Nick Senzel, he hits another home run, which,
Yeah.
by the way, just got named National League Player of the Week. Absolutely amazing week last week, getting started off on the right foot this week. But I mean, he's got 3 home runs. That is now the team lead. It's tied with Jason Vossler, who he's in AAA right now because, well, he hit 3 home runs and then he stopped hitting the ball altogether.
Yeah.
So they sent him
That's
down.
all he hit. That was it.
That was it. That was all he hit.
Runs.
But you know, with Nick Senzel hitting 3 home runs, it's cool when you talk about it from his perspective, a guy that, you know, we're having some fun watching right now because who knows what we're going to get out of this guy that just hasn't quite blossomed yet from where we thought he was going to be as a prospect. But then you look at it from a team-wide perspective and you say, this is a referendum on how much power the Reds lineup does not have, and they don't have that guy that can just flip the script on one swing of the bat. And that's where, you know, the Alex Young appearance for me, like, that's a rough one for him, but I don't necessarily think that completely taints my view of how he has started this season. He's pitched pretty well, but that one swing completely changes everything, completely blows the doors off this game. And then Blake Snell can kind of settle in for his final 2 innings and get a nice 6 innings, 3 earned runs, nice little quality start for him there to begin this series that really, I think, hinges on how the starters perform.
Let's talk about that home run for just a second, because I don't think Alex Young's appearance tonight, or last night rather, was as bad as it looks when you look at the box score. If you look at that home run, I'm curious. I haven't had a chance. I mean, we're recording like right after the game, so I haven't been able to look this up. I wonder how many Major League Baseball parks, active parks, that ball was actually going to be out of. I mean, it just barely cleared the fence. It hit the guy in the first row out there in left field. So, yeah, it's a home run. Yeah, it counts. It was a mistake pitch, but, it wasn't that well hit. I mean, we're not talking about a bomb. It just barely got out. I still have faith in Alec Young. I think right now, especially after what we saw from Reaver San Martin tonight, he's the best lefty in the bullpen right now. So we need him to be right to continue to move this team forward in later innings.
No, I 100% agree. And the way that the Padres were really able to shut down, that was the one thing that I was like, okay, let's see if the Reds can kind of counterpunch here after going down 3. The Padres pitching came in and shut the door.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that another big thing with the Padres, speaking of slow starts, has been Blake Snell for this season. And he does this every year. So I kind of haven't talked about him all that much on my show, to be honest, because I just feel like I haven't seen anything to suggest that, yeah, this is just what he does. He throws a lot of the pitches that don't work, and he tries experimenting with them on the year on or at the beginning of the season. Then as things go on, he's like, oh, I got an idea. I'll use my great fastball slider combo. And then he starts doing work. I know he did well today. He actually generated a lot of whiffs on his curveball today, which was really cool and was wiping out a Reds lineup. But you just mentioned not a lot of power in this Reds lineup, so I don't know how to necessarily view that. It was cool. It was encouraging. For me, the best thing about Snell was worked out of trouble, but more no walks. Blake Snell's had a lot of games where the control is this thing. So for me, it's not as much the swing and miss stuff because the Reds lineup hasn't been amazing, but Snell, sometimes he elevates the fastball a little bit too much and guys just get walk galore. So it was definitely one of his better starts of the season, and he's been slow. So hopefully they can do better. And then the Padres bullpen still pretty underrated. And Steven Wilson, who's a guy that goes an inning in this one, strikes out too. That guy's got good stuff. I know his ERA is at 4.5, but it's very reliever. It's a reliever syndrome. He gets lit up in the Mexico series game, which inflates the ERA. And then he had another poor appearance before that. But for the most part this year, this guy has been a guy who's going to guarantee you at least strike out an inning. Just really good stuff from Steven Wilson, kind of slowly cementing himself as a high impact reliever. And Domingo Tapia, who they just called back from AAA. He's got some stuff. He's especially a guy when you're winning a decent amount of games. He was a spring training darling. He can do stuff. But for me, Steven Wilson is the guy that Reds fans might not know. The ERA is way too high. I'm telling you, that's not legit. That'll calm down. But yeah, Padres pitching definitely came in there, shut down the door. And that was great because they don't want to be using up too much of it, given that, injuries and all that and what have you, especially for this pitching staff that just got back Joe Musgrove. So you got to be careful with that stuff. But it was great to see. And the Padres defense helping them out a decent amount, which I really, really appreciate, especially for a team I've had a lot of questions on when it comes to defense.
Yeah, that's something that I want to talk about here in just a minute is the defense, the fielding. And part of that is just some amazing plays by a couple of different dudes, including one Fernando Tatis, who we'll also get into a little bit. Plus, what is it like watching a guy like Nick Senzel, and what do we make of all of this? That's coming up right here in just a moment. Before we get into that, though, I want to tell you about one of our sponsors for today's podcast, and that is Game Time. Game Time is my favorite way to get tickets for a game. Whether or not you've got them early or you literally just pull up to the ballpark and want to find a seat, Game Time's the best way to do it. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. In fact, with the White Sox coming to town this weekend, you got 3 games that the Reds have a really good chance in, so you might want to be at the ballpark to see what the Reds can do. Make sure you jump on the Game Time app to find your best deals, because the Game Time app has the Game Time guarantee. If you find cheaper tickets on a different app in the same location as where the tickets you got, they're going to refund you 110% of the difference. That's how confident they are in their pricing model. Download the Game Time app today, and again, create an account and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. You combine that guarantee with a little bit of a coupon. I mean, what could go wrong? You can get some nice prices on Reds tickets this weekend. Game Time has last-minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. And also coming up, something else I want to talk about is So Rare. Our sponsor, So Rare, is a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace, transforming fans into owners with officially licensed digital cards featuring players from across all 30 MLB teams. I've got a team myself, a couple of different players. I had some nice performances from TJ Friedl up to this point. He's cooling off a little bit, but the way that you make your squad is you have an allotment of points. You have a budget that you got to fill out, and you can have a couple of superstars and then get some nice up-and-coming sleeper picks that nobody knows about just yet. Check it out today, sorare.com. You can play for free. MLB game weeks happen twice weekly and span a 3 to 4 day cycle. And at the end of game weeks, those who rank at or near the top of their leaderboards win a variety of rewards, which include some really rare, So Rare cards, game tickets. You can get merchandise, signed jerseys, and even VIP experiences like meeting MLB stars. So head to sorare.com/lockedon. That's sorare.com/lockedon today and draft your team of free players and start competing. sorare.com/lockedon to start playing today. Thanks as always for making Locked On Reds and Locked On Padres your first listen of the day. Every dayers, we got there's 2 more games left in this series, and it's one thing that I know, especially from the last couple of years, is that when the Reds and Padres get together, drama just happens. Like, I low-key thought maybe the Reds will make a really late comeback in Game 1. Didn't happen. Padres were really on top of things with their bullpen and with their fielding. But these two teams seem to just exude drama and intrigue. And if you want the hometown broadcast for either the Padres or the Reds, you can catch it on the Sirius XM app. And when you download the SXM app, just search Reds or Padres for your hometown broadcast. All right, I mentioned it. Fielding, huge factor in this game. And the Reds were okay at it. I mean, they've definitely been a lot worse in games so far this season. But the Padres, they were elite at fielding on Monday night.
Yes, they were. And they haven't been for a lot of the season in a lot of ways. Not like atrocious. This isn't last year's San Francisco Giants who were pretty historically bad, but they were up there, right? I've been taking shots at people. My apologies to Ben Katz with the Black Giants. I got love for you, man. I'm just saying. But they were really bad last year. And for the Pods, they've had a lot of questions. And I think the biggest question has been just the overall, just the amount of moving pieces, right? Even if I trust that those players in a vacuum can play all these positions, it's still a lot of roster turnover. You got Ha-Seong Kim moving from shortstop to second, Jay Cronenworth moving from second to first. You've got Juan Soto going from right field to left field. And then you've got Fernando Tatis Jr., who played his first game in a while at Petco, of course. And he's in right field now. And a lot of players made some good plays in this game, and I think that was really important. Xander Bogaerts making a nice scoop throw. There was a moment when Ha-Seong Kim, it didn't end up being an out, but the range and for him to even have gotten the throw off, and unfortunately went into the ground, and Cronenworth was unable to scoop it. It was on Cronenworth, but even still, the fact that he made that even a possible play was really nuts. And then Tatis made a nice, really running catch at one point in this game. That was lovely. It was delightful. He's showing the athleticism when he's in the outfield. He's not necessarily – he actually had an outfield assist over the weekend in the Mexico City series, which was great, nailing a runner at third base. But in terms of just overall, he has the tools. He has the peripherals. You know what I mean? Not to use like NFL combine language, but he has the peripherals. He's got the speed, he has
size
the
and all that stuff. Yeah,
all the size, his vertical inch leap. It's like, hey, how about we like watch the games at the NFL?
Yeah.
I don't know. Can we look at what happened in college? But with Tatis, it's still a question though. Just because you have the peripherals doesn't mean you'll be a great outfielder. Just as if you're this giant bulking guy doesn't mean you'll be a bad defensive player either. Sure. I think Aaron Judge is a great example of that. Joey Gallo, another one as well. But for Tatis, he just looks springy. And I think that when you compare him to Juan Soto, who has been pretty not great in the outfield, kind of feels like he runs like a tree. He's had some miscommunications with Grisham all year. And Tatis, just so much spring. He had a great play in his first game of the season against the D-backs. And this one just tracks the ball down. Not the type of thing you're going to see on SportsCenter top plays, but the fact that he already seems to be having some decent reaction time and getting to the ball quickly is huge. And a lot of this is based on eye test. It's still too early to look into outs above average or defensive runs saved for a guy like this who hasn't played enough in this kind of position. But just so far, he looks like he can handle it, and that's huge. He at least isn't going to be terrible. That's what it looks like right now, and I think you got a little bit of a taste of that in tonight's game.
There were a couple other eye tests on the red side of things, Jeff. The throw by Ramos from right field. Someone messaged me on Twitter and said that they could see me on one of the replays because I was up out of my seat early, sitting behind third base, and that throw was a cannon shot. I mean, it saved a run. Ultimately it got bobbled at the plate, but the throw was so good that it stopped the runner at third base in his tracks. It was fantastic. Nick Senzel showed some range over at third base. Now, he didn't get the out, but he made a scoop diving to his left throw that, maybe half second sooner gets the out.
Looking like Scott Rowland over there.
He did. I know. That's what you messaged me. That's right. Looked a little bit like Scott Rowland. And for me, I think Nick Senzel has reasserted himself as an infielder first. He looks more comfortable there. He looks happy there. The offensive production is there. And I think he's making some noise to reclaim a spot on the infield. Javier, you talked about those plays in the outfield. For the Reds fans in the stadium, and there were actually quite a few. We traveled pretty well in this game. There were two catches in the outfield.
It's nice in San Diego, and it's raining and 40
everyone wants to travel to
get
San Diego. They're like, great.
It was not that nice. Let me tell you, it was 59 degrees at game time. I was lied to my whole life about the weather in San Diego. But there were two plays in the outfield that really kind of just sucked the mojo out of what the Reds were doing. The Tatis play that you were just talking about, running, catching the ball kind of over his shoulder on the track. And then the name is escaping me, but the center fielder for the Padres.
Trent Grisham.
He made a catch diving forward that basically sucked all of the momentum out of the Reds offense in that moment. And those two plays were game changers. They made all the difference, I think, in the Reds being able to scrap back into this game.
Yeah, it's something that I hope that as we see some more guys coming up here, hopefully here soon, for this roster, that we start to see some holes get patched on the fielding side of things, because it feels like there's just not enough of the turning hits into outs on the Reds side of things. And I think that's the biggest thing for me. Like, I think if you were to say that the Reds defense is bad, there are some people that could look at the fundamentals and say, okay, this kind of works, this is all right, and this isn't that terrible. But it's when you, that extra step, it's when you get down to the nitty gritty. If there's guys on first and second and you've got a line drive that's in the gap that maybe a guy could dive and stop, but instead he tries to go for it, completely misses it, and then the bases get cleared and you've got a double or a triple by the guy that just hit the ball. It's something that the Reds are not able to do right now, and I hope that we see more of that. And you kind of saying that the Padres, not necessarily coming into this game, were really known for this early on. Just watching it, it kind of seemed not like his old hat, but it seemed very natural for the Padres fielding alignment to really be able to stop whatever the Reds thought they were about to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, defense has not been the name of the game for the Padres so far, but it's nice, even if it is against not necessarily like the high pressure rivalry games. They're going to be playing against the Dodgers after this Red series. It's still nice to see. And I think that you mentioned that Grisham catch. Look, Grisham is known for the defense, right? He's the kind of like a known quantity for this Padres team so far. Has 2 Gold Gloves on his resume already. Like, he's been great for sure. And he's also, 2 doubles in this game as well. So he seems to be better with the bat. Grisham is like that like tertiary player that all contenders want to have, a guy who at the minimum is going to go out there and play good defense for you, even if he's not swinging the bat well, which he sometimes doesn't. And with the Pods, they're going to have different alignments, I imagine, throughout the season. You're going to have different people behind the plate. They have Brett Sullivan tonight. He's a backup catcher ever since Luis Campuzano got hurt.
Then they might have Austin Nola tomorrow. Too, Sullivan did.
Yeah, he had a nice play there. So just good stuff. And it's one of the biggest things. And now I'm still worried about Soto. Soto's the one that hasn't shown me enough yet. He didn't really have like a moment in this game, which is fine. Just kind of had like the Chad Scott Hatteberg, like, I'm just afraid of any ball in my general direction. So if that's his fear, then don't worry, man. There was nothing hit towards you really. So that was really cool. But yeah, the Grisham diving catches, he's made a couple of those.
Hey, we've been told Scott Hatteberg's a good first baseman. I heard it from Adam Dunn. So let's just. But there is one more defensive play for the Reds I wanted to talk about real quick, Jeff, and it was just a heads-up baseball move by Jose Barrera. When he fielded a ground ball in the hole at short, and instead of winging a throw to first base, sprints over to third and nearly gets the runner around him. It was just a heads-up baseball play, and it was great to see because I think his days are probably numbered on the infield. So it was nice to see him have that smart move and at least have something positive since his hitting seems to be failing him a little bit. But he nearly made that play. I think another half step he gets him.
Yeah, it's just another one of those things that's like, ooh, maybe he's getting it. And then, yeah, it's just the Jose Barrera experience at this point. I do want to ask a question about Fernando Tatis and a question about Nick Senzel that I don't know, and I don't necessarily know that we want to answer it for fear of superstitions and things like that, but maybe we aren't superstitious. I don't know. We'll get into that coming up next. Before we do that, though, I want to shout out another one of our sponsors here today, and that is BetterHelp. The show is brought to you in part by BetterHelp. I am always learning new things about myself. I'm a person who's comfortable in my own skin, don't get me wrong, but just as soon as I feel like I've mastered something else comes along that I've got to overcome, something that I've got to kind of figure out how to mentally work through it. And we weren't meant to do this all by ourselves. Whether if you got friends or family, you need someone that you can talk to. But if you feel like there's no one you can turn to, there's always help out there. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who can take you on a journey of self-discovery from wherever you are in your life. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. It's all about getting you from A to B, helping you discover your best self. So discover your potential with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnMLB today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/LOCKEDONMLB to save 10% off your first month of BetterHelp today. In between games, or, during the rest of the series, you can get takes from us in between episodes. You can follow me and Steve for your Reds takes at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs or at S Offenbaker with 2 F's. And you can follow Javi for your Padres takes all throughout the season at Javi Peno with 2 I's. No F's in there, though, so, don't want to get that twisted.
Yeah.
But Javi, let's start with this, because Fernando Tatis is back. He is on a roster that is loaded. I mean, they went out and they got Xander Bogaerts over the offseason. I think in part because they weren't necessarily trying to hedge all of their bets on Fernando Tatis this season. But for a guy that was once considered the face of this game, or at least an up-and-coming face of Major League Baseball, where does he stand for you right now?
In the sense that, like, just as a star, he's kind of on that, like, he's coming back slowly. And it is true. I think that some people, I don't think it was just a year and a half or so, but even still, I think a lot of people look, this guy and Shohei Ohtani are a blockbuster. It's probably those two. And you've got some other great players, don't get me wrong, but types of people that my friends who know nothing about baseball are like, hey, the Padres have that Tatis guy, right? You get a lot of those with this guy, and he is back, and he hasn't done necessarily the ultimate, like, like the Jason Bourne meme where it says Tatis instead. He hasn't had that game necessarily just yet. He has hit a couple home runs. He hit one that was like, a little bit of a ballpark factor one. Speaking of ballpark factor, also Ha-Seong Kim's home run today. That was really cool, but also only a home run 3 out of 30 ballpark. So still, I'll take it.
That's what I'm saying.
Pull ball to left field. He loves that spot. He's a pull fly ball sometimes at Petco specifically. But with Tatis, the blockbuster factor, he did have that funny moment last week when the Cubs fans were doing the sour grapes thing and they were calling him a cheater, and then he danced in the outfield or whatever. I thought it was a very funny way to handle it, but he hasn't had the ultimate moment. It's just going to take some time. But I do think that, he's going to have some crazy play. But I'm curious to see, because, I mean, he's had some moments before that I don't know if he's going to do the same way again. The Cubs moment makes me think he's not changed as a personality, which I think is good. But, is he still going to do the thing where he mocks former pitcher for the Dodgers, Trevor Bauer, where he does the strut as he crosses home plate, or the eye thing? Is he going to do stuff like that? Is he going to do the bat flip galore? I don't fully know, but I don't think that we know for sure he's not. And I think that's still good. I think that it's always good for players to play how they are, show passion, show personality. I think that's always great for the game. And hopefully the talent matches it. That's really what's important. The on-field production has to match it. And so far, whatever start, I just kind of don't care. You know what I mean? I'm just so happy to have him back, to be honest with you.
Well, and it's nice too. I mean, you've got, all those guys that he doesn't necessarily have to hide behind, but it's just, if he doesn't pan out quickly, he can kind of take his time getting back, because, well, there's a bunch of other dudes on that team that can kind of support him and kind of get him there. Kind of conversely, and it's kind of been a weird start to the season for a couple of different guys like Tyler Stevenson and guys that you would have expected to be more, not maybe powerful, but at least more of a huge threat in the middle of this order. And Spencer Steers kind of slowed down a little bit. Nick Senzel, over the last 8 days, Steve has really kind of had a good 8 days, and I keep dancing around it like it's been fun.
Look,
do we need to go to the next step? Because I don't want to jinx it.
The Nick Senzel that we've got right now is the Nick Senzel we've been waiting for since he hit the major leagues. I mean, let's just be honest about it. 300, 400, 400 slash line is a starter. He's a starter on this team right now. And as long as his production continues to hold that line, he needs to be on the field. And I don't care if it's at center field or at third base or at second base or at DH. I don't care. He needs every day at bats as long as that's going on. As I said earlier, though, Jeff, I feel like he just looks like a more complete player when he's on the infield. He looks happy. He looks like he's in his element. And I think that translates into what he's able to do at the plate. Now, I understand what his history is. And I know every time we've gotten ourselves excited and really begun to count on him, something has happened. So I get why you don't want to jinx it. But I'm just happy to see how happy he is. I am just happy to see him being successful and contributing to this Reds team. We've waited so long for all of these stars to align with him. And I think we're finally getting to see it. And, I hope beyond hope, Jeff, that he is able to stay healthy and give us 150 games in 2023.
It was a joke that I made a little while back, he's really good at third base. Who knew? that was sarcasm. He was drafted as a third baseman. I understand this. He played third base at Tennessee. Like that's where he came from. So the fact that he went on this weird journey on his way through the minor leagues for the Reds, and then all of a sudden, right before he gets called up, they're like, by the way, you're going to play center field. It's like, yes, he's an athlete and he could probably figure that out, but let's put him where he's comfortable. And he's obviously comfortable at third base. I mean, that play that he just missed, the throw probably would have been caught by Joey Votto, probably would have been caught by an everyday first baseman. I don't begrudge Spencer Steer that. I was lamenting it a little bit, not in, at him, but just in the like, man, if we'd had a legitimate first base, maybe even Will Myers, if Will Myers wasn't on the injured list, maybe he makes that play there and finishes the out on just amazing bare hand pick and throw as Senzel's running across the middle of the infield.
He was almost to second base when he scooped that ball.
The kind of play, and honestly, I mean, you could have made the case that, well, maybe the shortstop makes that play, but Senzel just knew where the ball was, where he wanted to be, and he made a perfect throw, just needed to be scooped out of the dirt a little bit. So it's something that I want to see more of. And I think especially while you've got both Joey and Will Myers on the IL, so first base, the plan that the Reds had really set forth in the offseason as to how they were going to run first base without Joey Votto, it's kind of getting messed up without Will Myers there. Spencer Steer, maybe he can get better at making that stretch, because if he's going to be getting throws from Nick Senzel like that, I don't know, man. I'm really happy with what I'm seeing from the former number 2 overall draft pick right now. I do want to see more of it. And I texted a couple of friends and I was like, I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it. And they're like, what, you mean like he looks like a major league player right now? And I'm like, yeah, right now he kind of does. He kind of does. And there's so many people, and there's probably somebody in the comment section right now that is saying, I don't buy it. I'm not doing it. No, never. We needed to get rid of him last year. And
it's like our Eric Hosmer. Yeah.
Yeah. That's just, that's what baseball fans do.
Yeah, absolutely. Really does. I can relate to that for sure. The amount of times I've gotten comments when Hosmer would start off really well, even though his batting average on balls in play is like 670, and then they'd be like, look, he's playing great. I'm like, yeah, but it's probably going to go down, and he hasn't changed his overall swing. But I understand it. And hey, there are players and examples of guys who have moved positions and that like did something for them. I mean, I know baseball fans like to pretend that you can just log on Fangraphs and then you're like, here's the projection. These aren't humans. They will simply follow through with what the red bubbles and whatnot say on Savant. You know what I mean? Like, well, right. No, like, you know what I mean? Then why would we be playing this? That's what AI is, right? Like, that's not how that works. So it could totally happen. And I think that there's some examples that I don't have off the top of my head immediately, but I know like, Gleyber Torres for the Yankees comes to mind. Yep. I live on the East Coast, guys. I hear sports talk radio. But, with him, he was playing short, and then they kind of moved him around, played him at second, then he kind of revitalized his career a little bit. So that can happen. It's not totally impossible, and I think it's something that should be looked into for Reds fans. As an outsider, I would say definitely look into that.
And you know what, Steve? I feel like that is a great place. And Javi, that's a great place to end, because, Steve, what you don't realize is Javi just said the name of his greatest enemy. And he doesn't do that very often, and that's how we're going to end this crossover.
It's okay. The curse is over now that he's on the team. It is over now that he's on the team.
Everybody for checking out today's crossover between Locked On Reds and Locked On Padres. We are both part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. And for all the everydayers out there, make sure you check us out tomorrow as we react to the Graham Ashcraft Michael Wacha saga that's about to take place here tonight at Petco Park.